right, hello everybody. How are you all doing? Today I'm going to teach you one of the most delicious summertime dishes, right, which is a pan roasted New York strip steak, and we're going to make a little corn succotash, all right, with some baked potatoes. So if you're seeing me on this, you know this is a pre-recorded class, okay? So feel free to rewind it, pause it, right? Or if we're going to be completely honest, fast forward it, okay? If you're already tired of hearing me talk, right? But my name is Tyler. I'm one of the co-founders here at Truffle Shuffle. I will take you through this recipe from start to finish, okay? And we're going to start literally by just pulling out that recipe card, okay? So you can see I got this beautiful recipe card right here. Absolutely stunning. Okay, it is basically like a love note from me to you over there. And we broke down this recipe the same way that we train chefs in a professional restaurant, right? So first of all, we're going to do all that mise en place, right? And so mise en place is kind of an encompassing term. It means your equipment, right? Your prep, your mindset, all those things that you need to be in place, right? In order to successfully cook the dish. Then we're going to go through our ingredients, and then I will take you from start to finish how to cook the dish, okay? So we're going to start with our mise en place over here, all right? And the first thing we will need is a cutting board, okay? Look at that beautiful cutting board right there. Okay, we will also need a pair of tongs, all right, which I got right here. Make sure they work. After that, we got a knife, a nice sharp knife right here. And we will also need 2 large saute pans, okay? So I'm going to use a cast iron today for cooking my steak, right? And then I'm going to use a stainless steel pan for making my succotash, all right? If you don't have cast iron, or you want to use cast iron for both, or whichever, or you only have non-stick even, right? Any type of pan selection will work, okay? So next, we will need some paper towels, which I got right there. We will also need a lovely wooden spoon, okay? As well as a large basting spoon, all right? So that is all of our mise en place, okay? Next, I'm just going to go through all the ingredients just to familiarize all of us, you know, with what we're talking about, okay? So first things first, I have a beautiful New York strip steak, okay? And I've gone ahead and removed that strip steak from the packaging. And now I have it on a plate tempering, okay? So I removed it from the packaging. I patted it dry. Now I've got it on a plate tempering. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and do that, because this is a super important step whenever you're cooking any protein, right? Steak, chicken, fish, right? You can never truly properly cook protein unless you temper it, which means bringing it up closer to room temperature, right? Because otherwise, if we don't do this, the inside of that steak is going to be wicked cold, right? If we cooked it right out of the fridge. And we're going to have to overcook the outside to properly cook the inside, okay? So tempering is very, very important, right? I also have a little bit of bacon, okay? A little slab bacon over here. Looking stunning in all of its glory. Okay, we're going to show you how to cut a little bacon dice. We will also need beautiful ear of sweet corn, which was sent to all of you, as well as some scallions, right? A little thyme and garlic, okay? We've got some canola oil, some sun-dried tomatoes, okay? And a little bit of black truffle gastrique, okay? So there's a really nice flavoring element. This is equal parts sherry vinegar and honey, and then we put a little bit of chopped black winter truffle in there, and it's going to add that really nice acidity, a little bit of sweetness, and it's going to add that really nice earthiness from the truffle to the dish as well, okay? Next up, we will need some butter, all right? We got a little bag of spinach, okay? And we got a packet of the world's finest Balinese truffle salt. All right, as delicious. And then at this stage in the game, I do have my potatoes in the oven, okay? So you all should have received a little video, right, of how to get that potato going, right? Getting it in the oven, poking it with the fork, a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt, okay? Wrapping it up in foil and putting it in the oven. So if you haven't done so, you can pause, get that potato in the oven, get it baking, okay? Or you can use a little assistance from Chef Michael Wave, right? To kind of help you out and then just finish it in the oven. So either or. But at this point, you do want those potatoes in your oven, okay? So that is all of our mise en place and all of our ingredients, okay? And so I know you're probably there by yourself or maybe with family, with friends, whatever. But we still love to keep these classes interactive even if they are pre-recorded, okay? So if you're ready to get into cooking this dish over there, right, I would love to see a thumbs up out there. All right. Oh, there you go. And I am joined today by the one and only DJ Dragon, okay, in the house. So with that, we're going to go right into our prep during our class. Okay, so I'm going to scroll right down to step 1, okay, which is to shuck that corn. All right, so I want to go ahead, grab that piece of corn, and I'm just going to remove the husks from that corn, okay? So, corn is a very interesting ingredient, right? It's got the husk on the outside, okay? And then below the husk, you'll find all the corn silks, right? And the way it works is that every silk strand is actually connected to a corn kernel, right? And when the corn actually gets pollinated, right, that's what allows the kernels to form, okay? So, kind of a cool little fun fact. Every single silk has itself a kernel. So what you want to do is come over here, just remove all those corn silks, okay? So we're removing the husk. We're taking those silks off, right? Getting all that removed. Beautiful. And you want to just take your time, get rid of all those corn silks, okay? Get rid of all those corn silks. Not that they're... Honestly, you can absolutely eat the corn silk. It's just I don't necessarily want that texture in the finished dish, right? So, go ahead, remove all those corn silks. You're left with that beautiful ear of sweet corn in all of its glory, okay? DJ Dragon loves corn, right? So, I'm going to go ahead, just pop all these guys into compost. Again, if you want to save the corn silks, you can make a little corn stalk out of them. Sarah makes a really cool amazed cocktail, right? Make it a little corn silk tea. So you can do any of those items. They do have a lot of flavor, right? But I'm going to just pop them into compost, right? And then what I want to do next is come over here and I want to cut the corn kernels away from the cob. All right. So in order to do that, just take your knife, right? And you want to just first cut one side of kernels completely off of that corn cob, right? And then once you have those cut, just turn that corn cob so the cut side is facing down, right? And that gives you a nice stable base to cut from. Okay? And then you can come over here and cut the rest of those corn kernels. All right? And again, just rotating that ear of corn each time you're making that cut. All right? Nice. Giving that nice rotation over there. Beautiful. So you can see over here, I got all my corn kernels cut off of that ear of corn. All right. And I like to call these the corn bones, right? The corn cobs or the corn bones. If you want, you can chop these up and make a really, really nice broth out of them, right? Legitimately, what we would do is just take lots and lots of corn bones, pop them into a pot, fill it up with water, boil it for a couple hours, right? Simmer it for a couple hours. Strain it, and you're left with this, literally just corn cobs, and you're left with a really beautiful, almost like syrupy, really sweet corn stalk, right? So I'm gonna go ahead, save this for a little bit of corn stalk. And then I'm just gonna come over here and transfer all of those corn kernels into a nice small bowl, right? A plate, either or. All right. And just get them off to the side. Excellent. So, you can see over here, I got my beautiful looking corn kernels. I'm just going to kind of break them up a little bit so they're in individual kernels, right? And you can see over here, look at how delicious those corn kernels look. Wow. Stunning. All right. And again, you can go back through. If you see any little corn silks, you can remove them. You can be as detailed as you want with it, right? But because I'm not cooking at a fine dining restaurant, I'm not super worried about if I got a tiny little silk here and there in here, okay? So go ahead, place that off to the side, okay? The next step we're going to get to is the bacon, okay? Which, if we're going to be honest, is one of the most delicious parts of this dish, right? And I gotta say, I first learned how to make succotash when I was a kid, cooking back home in Maine. And this is one of the first things I learned how to cook on a line. And it always blew me away, just the flavor combination of salty bacon, sweet corn, kind of like acidic tomatoes, right? Always really left an impression on me and really made me think summertime, right? Summer, almost late fall, even too, every time I tasted succotash, right? So we send you some really nice bacon. This is a hardwood smoked, so it's got a little bit more of a nice, strong kind of smoke flavor on it, okay? And what I want you to do is just dice this bacon up. So we're going to dice about 1/4 inch dice. So I got the skin side facing down. I'm just going to cut little planks of that bacon, all right? And they don't have to be 100% perfect. And then come back through here, and we're going to cut our little bacon dice, right? Beautiful. So you can come through here, cut the bacon across, come back, dice that bacon up. Excellent. And then just go ahead and pop that bacon onto a small plate, right? Put it in a little bowl, whichever you'd like. That way you get that really nice little dice of that bacon over there, okay? And I don't know about you, but personally, every time I cut bacon, it literally is just a time to celebrate, okay? So I know you're probably excited about cutting bacon out there as well, right? So let's take some time. Let's celebrate together. Hold that bacon up, right, to that computer or whatever it is that you're working off of, and let me check out that bacon over there, okay? I know it's pre-recorded, but oh, look at that. Beautiful bacon over there. Oh my gosh. We can get even closer over here, Chef. Look at that. Wow. That is pretty nice. What do you think about that, DJ Dragon? Pretty nice, right? Heavenly. So now that we've got our bacon diced, we're now going to dice up these sun-dried tomatoes, okay? And so we're doing sun-dried tomatoes over here, right? You can use fresh tomatoes if you want to recreate this in the future. I like the sun-dried because they They have a little bit more of that kind of umami flavor. And I'm going to allow the acidity from the gastrique to really be the acidity in this dish. Okay? So just come over here, and we're just going to dice those sun-dried tomatoes the same size as we dice the bacon. Right? And if you want to go ahead and try one. Love sun-dried tomatoes. The cool thing about sun-dried tomatoes, I always think of them as like tomato concentrate. You know? Like, because you're removing the water content, right? And you're kind of mellowing out the acidity in the tomatoes, you're just left with that really, really intense kind of umami flavor, which is so delicious, right? So, again, just a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes, right? Again, just to add to that kind of complexity of flavor. And one of the things you'll notice whenever you're building flavors, right? There's the star of the show that you're focusing on, right? And many times when you're making like side dishes especially, or sauces are super, super important with this, you'll add a lot of like smaller flavors in small quantities, but they all add up to create that complexity, right? So the way that was best described to me when I was a young kid is that cooking is a lot of little things done well, right? So at this point, I got bacon and tomatoes living in harmony on the same plate. All right? And that is step 2 in our prep during our class. Okay? So, again, if I'm going a little bit faster than you can feel free. Go ahead, pause this recording if you'd like, right? But I'm going to go into the scallions, right? And I like scallions because they're kind of that more delicate in the allium family, right? They're not as intense as like a onion. You can use onion for this, right? But I'm just going to use scallion. So go ahead, kind of remove any, if you got any outer layer on that scallion that's just not looking super, super beautiful, you can go ahead and remove it. This is just fine. And what I'm going to have you do is cut just that kind of white and light green part of the scallion that's near the root. Okay? You can use the whole scallion. You're still going to get the same flavor profile. But if we use the kind of green part of the scallion, you'll see when we make this succotash, it'll just turn a little off green, right? Just because of the acid that's present in that gastrique. It's not necessarily bad, but we just want to capture as much visual appeal as we can. So, again, any little vegetable trimmings, you can save them for stock, right? If you'd like, you can put those in your corn stock. And so I'm just going to come through here, and first I'm going to trim the very ends of those scallions, all right? And then I'm just going to come through and slice really nice thin slices, okay? So, again, whenever you're using a knife, curl those fingers in, get that knife right and nice and tight and close, right? And just come through here and give yourself nice, really thin slices of those scallions, all right? And so we're just looking for about a half a cup, right? To be completely honest with you, I very rarely, if ever, like measure ingredients like this. I just kind of eyeball them, right? That's about a quarter cup, which I'm halfway through my scallions, which is perfect. So I'm going to go to the other guys, right? Nice. And again, we're just cutting that nice light color part at the bottom and that nice light green, okay? To give us that half cup. Beautiful. And so again, those tops of those scallions, you can use them, in some scrambled eggs, put them in that corn stock. You can do a lot of things with those nice scallion tops, okay? So I'm just going to come over here place those scallions onto this little plate that I got my bacon on, my tomatoes on, right? And so this right here, this is mise en place, right? Your prep that's done, that's like ready to go, ready to cook. And this is how you do it in a restaurant. You ever wonder how the guys at the restaurant are able to cook things so quickly? They're not starting from zero every single time an order comes in. You know, it's not like every time an order comes in you like start cutting the scallions. You have all the scallions cut before you even start service. So that way you're just cooking, right? So at this point, you can see over here, we have gone through our prep steps over here, right? And we have completed all of those prep items, all right? So look at these beautiful colors and flavors that we're going to have for our succotash. We got that nice sweet corn, okay? We got those nice sliced scallions, that hardwood smoked bacon, and those sun-dried tomatoes. Okay, so if you are ready to get into cooking this steak, okay, all we're doing over here, we're going to cook this succotash up. We're going to set that aside. We're going to get our steak roasted, get that resting, right? We're going to finish this succotash with that beautiful spinach to just wilt it, and then serve it alongside a nice baked potato, okay? So if you're ready to get into cooking, okay, I would love to see a thumbs up out there. All right, nice. So we're going to start off with our succotash, okay? And we're going to go to step 1 in our prep during our class, okay? Or sorry, our how to cook section. And the first thing I want you to do is preheat that large saute pan over medium heat, okay? Medium heat. So, again, I'm using that cast iron for my steak, but I got my large saute pan preheating over medium heat, okay? And I'm just going to come in here and add a small amount of butter to that saute pan. Honestly, like half a tablespoon, right? And I'm going to use that to help me render out my bacon, okay? And so I always like to use a little bit of fat to start whenever I'm rendering something like bacon. And just to kind of speak to it, rendering, when you're rendering, you're taking a solid fat, you're applying heat to it, and you're turning it into its liquid form, okay? So all fats, they have temperatures that they're solid at and temperatures that they're liquid at. Animal fats, obviously, you know, need a little more heat before they turn into liquid. But whereas something like olive oil is liquid even at room temperature, right? But you want to go ahead, melt that butter down, and just get that bacon into that pan, okay? And what we're going to do over here is we're just going to render out this bacon, okay? And you'll see the fat will kind of come out of it, and the bacon will start to brown up a little bit, okay? So, again, I'm on nice medium heat over here, and I just want to consistently stir that bacon, okay? And any little brown bits of bacon that kind of stick to the bottom of that saute pan, just scrape them up. All right, just scrape them up. So your kitchen will be smelling unbelievably delicious, okay, during this stage over here, just so you know, right? It will be smelling unbelievably delicious, right? But nice. So again, this is going to take about a minute or two, okay? And I'm just kind of moving that bacon around as it's cooking, right? Just that way it's getting consistently browned on all sides, okay? So you can start seeing my bacon's starting to get nice and browned up, nice and rendered. Beautiful. And so with this succotash, right? Personally, I'm not necessarily focused on getting the bacon crispy. I actually don't want it to be crispy. I want it to have a little bit of chew to it, which is why I dice the bacon as opposed to cutting it into a thinner strip. And that's just because, personally, that's the way I like it. That's how we used to do it back in the day. You kind of find those nice little pockets of fat, those nice little pockets of bacon in there. It tastes really, really nice, and it has a nice texture to it as well. So, again, I'm just looking to get a little bit of that fat out of that bacon. Just lightly brown the outside of it. Okay. Beautiful. And so you can see over here, my bacon is pretty much exactly where I want it, right? So I'm just going to show it to you. You can see it's got some nice brown on the outsides, right? It's rendered out. We got a little bit of that bacon fond at the bottom of the pan, which is those little brown bits stuck to the bottom of your pan. That's where all your flavor is, okay? So at this point, I'm going to continue on medium heat, right? And now I'm going to add my corn into my saute pan. Okay? So get that corn in there. Alright? When I'm adding the corn, I'm also going to add a nice little pinch of that beautiful Balinese truffle salt. Okay? Just come in here. Alright? Grab a little pinch of salt. You don't need too much salt, right? Because that bacon has a good amount of salt in it too. And then you just want to let that salt rain down into that saute pan. Alright, so just go ahead, stir that corn up. I just want to get a little bit of browning on some of those kernels of corn, just kind of wake it up a little bit, right? Get a little bit of that roasty flavor. Okay? But this only takes about 30 seconds to a minute once you get that corn in there. Okay? Nice. Just getting those corn kernels coated in all that bacon fat too. So, now that our corn's been going for about 30 seconds to a minute, I'm going to add all of that black truffle gastrique, okay? So you can see that over here. You can go ahead, add all of, oh my god, that black truffle gastrique into that corn, right? And what we're doing here is called deglazing, right? Deglazing. So what deglazing does is it allows you to remove the little pieces that are stuck to the saute pan. When you add liquid, it lets you can kind of scrape everything off the bottom, and that's how you make sure all those little nice brown bits are in your succotash as opposed to just stuck to your saute pan at the end, because there's a lot of flavor in there. So come over here, right? Stir that corn with that gastrique, right? And we're just going to cook this until a nice little glaze forms, okay? Which on my corn, I'm almost there already, right? You'll notice you're making a little bit of that sauce over there, right? You lean in and smell it. It smells delicious, all right? And I'm also going to add my sun-dried tomatoes, okay? This is going to allow those tomatoes to kind of hydrate a little bit. They're going to soak up a little bit of that gastrique as well. All right, let all those flavors hang out. Nice. So over at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off. And you can see over here, you see how that corn is nicely glazed? There's not too much liquid in the bottom of that pan, right? In fact, there's only a little bit. So at this stage, turn the heat off. And we're just going to add all of our scallions into that pan. All right? So get those chopped scallions in there and just stir them into that succotash, right? And just allow the residual heat of that succotash to heat up those scallions, right? We don't necessarily need to cook them and make them soft, right? We just need to gently warm up. That way they retain that integrity. Okay? So you see over here, look at that. That's the base to our succotash over there. Oh my gosh. Right? A lot of delicious flavors going on. Anytime you're making succotash, you know, there really isn't any like exact recipe or whatever. I know it to be some sort of pork product, corn, and some sort of tomato product, right? And then besides that, you can add whatever you want. You can put lima beans in here, fava beans, right? I mean, literally, the sky is the limit, okay? But make sure you taste it. So come over here. Let's get a quick little taste. Wow. That is delicious. So, I'm just going to hold that succotash off to the side, okay? And later on, when we go to add our spinach, we're going to reheat it and just barely wilt down our spinach. But I want to add that right before I go to plate up this dish, okay? So, again, it's a pretty quick process, right? Making succotash. So, all we have left to do over here is cook up this steak, okay? Let it rest, carve it, and we'll be eating here very shortly. So, if you got that succotash cooked to the same stage that I'm at and you are ready to cook this steak, okay, I would love to see a thumbs up out there. All right? So, I'm going to come over here and we're going to get this steak cooking, okay? So, again, I'm going to cook it over a cast iron pan, right? And what I'd like you to do first is come over here, right? And just make sure that steak is nice and dry, all right? Make sure it's nice and dry. Because whenever you are searing a steak, what we're looking to get is that really beautiful crust on that steak, right? And the only way to get a crust is to make sure there's as little water or moisture as possible on top of the steak, right? Because if there was moisture, when it hits the pan, it's going to steam, right? Instead of brown. So make sure anytime you're trying to saute something or sear something, it's as dry as possible, okay? So next, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to heat my pan up over high heat, okay? We're going to be cooking high heat. And we're going to be flipping the steak every 30 seconds, right? This is just how we do it in the restaurant. So if you have a window that you need to open up, do it, right? Hood vents, now is the time, okay? If any of your neighbors call about fire alarms going off and they're upset, right? We actually have an entire team of 6 people that are full-time that we staff just to deal with fire alarm related inquiries. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of that canola oil into my saute pan, okay? And what I'm going to do over here is heat up that oil until it starts smoking, okay? And it's really important that the oil smokes because canola oil, right? And that's why we say canola oil, because it's got a very high heat tolerance. It doesn't even start smoking until it's like 430 degrees, right? So you know when you see that oil smoking that your pan is wicked hot, right? So while that oil is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and season the steak on all sides, okay? Not just one side, not just a quarter of a side, right? Make sure you get up nice and high. That salt really rain down. You can pat that salt into that steak, okay? Season up the other side, right? And you'll see over here, we're using New York strip steaks, right? Which are a really beautiful cut of meat, okay? And these are all prime steaks, right? Coming from Black Angus cattle, which personally is one of my favorite breeds of meat cow, right? So you see over here, that beautiful steak, right? And the thing that I like about New York strip, the thing that's nice about it, if you've ever had a T-bone or a porterhouse, this strip is the larger side of that bone. And it's probably the only muscle, the only tender, large muscle, right, in the animal that has that really nice grain structure And the thing I love about it is it's got that fat cap on it too. Okay? So it's a really beautiful cut of meat. New York strip. You know, if you haven't had them before, sometimes they call them shell steaks, right? But it really is one of my personal favorites, and it's great for a pan sear. Okay? So when I cook my steak, I'm gonna cook mine to right in between medium rare and medium. That's how I like it. But if you want to cook your steak a little bit more, a little bit less, feel free, okay? But with that, we're going to be flipping the steak every 30 seconds, and that's going to give us a beautiful crust and that edge-to-edge temperature, right? You'll see there's going to be no gray line in between the crust and the pink part of the meat, which is what you really look for with a properly cooked steak. So my pan's smoking, right? You can see that. See that, DJ Dragon? Oh. We are smoking hot over here. So I'm going to go ahead and get that steak in that pan. Alright. So go ahead, get that steak in that pan. Alright. Right. And you want to make sure that your steak isn't sticking in your pan, right? You want to make sure that pan is hot enough where that steak doesn't even stick. So come in here, right? I'm going to give it the first flip. Boom. Alright. And again, you're going to be smoking out your house, so make sure you have ventilation situated. And if you notice, I just like tilting my pan back and forth. I just like to make sure that there's oil underneath that steak. Okay? So, again, make sure you're moving that steak around, right? Flipping it over, again, every 30 seconds, right? So, coming over here, getting that first side again, right? And, you know, I'm sure you're kind of noticing that, you know, this first steak over here, or that first flip over here, you're not getting the sear that you eventually want. That's totally correct. But what we're doing is we're building the sear, right? If you just hammer that steak on one side and flip it over and hammer it on the other side, you're going to get that crust and that gray line, and then a little bit of pink, and then gray, and then crust, right? Which I don't want that. I want some nice, beautiful temperature going from edge to edge. Okay? So, again, keep flipping that steak over, right? And another good kind of rule that you can use over here, excuse me, it's getting a little smoky, is you'll notice that my steak is right here in my pan. When I flip it, I'm going to flip it to that side of my pan, which has no steak in it, because that side of my pan is getting hot, right? So basically, I'm like continually re-searing that steak, right? So you can see over here, boom, right? Getting that steak going in there, right? And now this side of my pan is kind of preheated, right? So I like doing that to really make sure you're maximizing your searing opportunities as you're cooking. Okay? So, again, keep doing this. It's going to take about 5 minutes or so, right? 5-6 minutes, depending on the thickness of your steak. Every steak is a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner, right? But I want to show you all over here what I like to look for when I'm testing the temperature of a steak. So, to be honest, I know some people use meat thermometers. I don't, because a meat thermometer is a very, it's a snapshot of what's going on, right? It can't predict the future, so to speak, because you get a lot of carryover cooking anytime you're cooking any type of protein, right? So, what I've been taught to do and what I want to teach all you is cooking to feel, because it's actually more accurate than a thermometer, right? So, giving that guy another flip over there. And so, what I want you to do is come over here, take your fingers, and don't be scared, right? Part of cooking is getting your fingers a little warm sometimes. And just press on that steak, right? Just press down on that steak. And what you want to look for is for the steak to bounce back up at you, right? You want that steak to bounce back up at you, because when it does that, that means that the protein is coagulating, right? And it's cooking. And that's what you're feeling for. You're feeling for that resistance, right? So, over here, my steak is pretty thick, so it's still a little bit rare, right? But I would advise you at this time in the cooking process just to start testing that steak and watch how it changes, right? Watch how it goes from really having a lot of give to really kind of like plumping up, right? So my steak is almost there, not quite, right? So close. So you can come over here, right? Oh, beautiful. Look at that steak. Because I got this cast iron, I'm starting to get almost some char over here, right? But yeah, mine's almost there. Probably 2 more flips. It's gonna be right there, right? But you see that beautiful crust that I'm getting, right? And you'll really see that I'll get that nice temperature as well. Okay, so again, this guy is very close. Mine's still like really solidly medium rare at this point. And I told you I want to go just in between. So we'll give it one more flip. Nice. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. So at this point, my steak is beautifully cooked. I got that nice bounce on it, which I can show you from DJ Dragon's newly installed bounce cam. Okay? See this? Take my fingers. Look at this. Boom. See that bounce? That's perfect. Alright? So at this stage, what I want to do is I want to start basting up my steak. But before I get there, you'll notice that, again, on that New York strip, there's that beautiful fat cap, and you want to make sure to cook that. So just come over here, right? Tilt that pan, and just place that steak fat cap side down in that saute pan, just to get a little browning going on that steak, right? Again, we're rendering this fat over here. We're browning up that fat cap, which makes it really a lot nicer to eat than if you just have that fatty part of that steak on there, right? So check it out. See that? Boom. New York strip, they always got a little bit of fat on the bottom too, on the tail end. Just hit that up, right? So, at this point, now I'm going to start basting my steak. So I want you to turn the heat down to about medium, right? And then we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter to the pan, okay? Add a good amount of butter, right? And then go ahead, add all of that thyme, okay? And then we're going to smash that clove of garlic with the heel of our hand, but leave it in the skin, right? So, go ahead, smash it. I got a little aggro with that one. But, get that guy a nice smash. And then come over here, right? And just tilt that pan backwards. And let everything get nice and magical, right? In that pan. That nice butter, that thyme, that garlic, right? All those delicious flavors. And just put that thyme and garlic on top of your steak. And just baste that steak up, right? With that beautiful thyme and garlic infused butter. Just give it a little bath, right? And then come over here and just get that steak out of that pan and onto that cutting board. Alright? And so what we got to do now is we have to rest the steak, okay? And so a good way to think about it is that what you do to a piece of protein before it goes in the pan and after it comes out of the pan is just as important as what happens in the pan, right? Too many times we think of cooking as just the physical, like, heat application step in the process, right? But, I mean, to be honest, you know, and this is where you can go down endlessly, but the way the animal's treated, the way it's raised, you know what I mean? All the way up to tempering it, seasoning it, making sure the pan is hot, right? Before we even put the steak in there. Flipping it, basting it. Now we gotta let it rest, right? Which is so important, especially when you're cooking meat, because you really want to make sure that all those juices are retained in that steak, right? And they're not kind of, you spent all that time to get that beautiful temperature. If we cut into the steak now, all those juices would just come right out of the steak, and we want to keep them in there. So the way to think about it is the outside of this steak is so hot, right? But the inside of this steak is still not so hot. So you really need to let the steak kind of hang out and let the temperatures kind of equalize. All right? So this is a perfect time as you're doing this to kind of wipe down your stove that is inevitably coated in cooking fat, right, at this stage. Let's go ahead, wipe it down, right? And what we're going to do over here next, after I got this all organized, what we're going to do over here next is we're going to finish this succotash with our spinach, right? We're just barely going to wilt the spinach in. And then we're going to remove that potato from that oven, get that nice amount of butter going on in there, and then we're going to carve up the steak, okay? And we're going to be eating here very shortly. So, if you get that steak out of that pan, right, is looking delicious. One of the things you do want to make sure you do is put that thyme and garlic on top of that steak as it's resting, all right? You see that? That thyme and garlic is on that steak, okay? That is just like a stop sign, okay? Whereas it is a universally recognized symbol to anyone that might be walking by, right? They might just be passing through your kitchen, right, as you're cooking up the steak casually. And if they stop and they see thyme and garlic on top of a steak, that is a sign that a true professional cooked that piece of meat, right? Again, universally recognized. So, at this stage, I'm just going to get some of these items out of the way, right? So, I got my kitchen, my stove nice and cleaned off. My succotash is still there, ready to reheat here in just a second. My steak is looking delicious, right? I just got to rest it just a little bit longer, okay? So, I'm going to go right into finishing up this succotash, okay? And getting into the next steps over here. So, the first thing I want to do is heat that succotash back up over medium heat, right? And I'm going to add my spinach into my saute pan, okay? And what I want you to do, don't cook this spinach down till it's nothing. Just wilt it, right? So go in here, add that spinach, right? I got my pan on medium heat. Once you can hear the corn cooking, turn the heat off, right? And just let the residual heat of that pan wilt the spinach down the rest of the way. All right? And again, this is kind of a cool technique of cooking greens, but not hammering them till they're like insignificant, right? You're really kind of allowing it to have almost a little bit more of that like salad effect, right? Nice. So you can see, yeah, that spinach is just barely wilting down, just barely warmed through. All right, looking absolutely stunning. Okay, so this is the last time, the last chance you got to adjust the seasoning. So make sure you capture that moment, right? Get in there and get a little taste. I want to try it with some of that spinach. Mine is tasting good, but needs a little more salt, right? So come in here, add another pinch. Stir that in. Beautiful. Again, you see how our spinach has still kind of retained a little bit of that integrity. All right, so now all we gotta do is go ahead and plate this dish up. All right, so I'm gonna grab one of my favorite steak plates, right, which is a wooden board, okay? And come over here and just grab those potatoes. All right, so these potatoes are hot. Okay, so please be careful. All right, but I'm just gonna go ahead, remove those potatoes from that foil, right? Get them onto my cutting board over here. All right, and what I want you to do is we're just gonna open up that potato, so just cut a little bit, a little slice in the top. You just want to see that nice steam come off of that potato over there. All right, look at that. Oof, nice steamy potato. I'm gonna do the same with my other potato, right? Get that nice steam effect. All right, so go ahead, plate up those potatoes over there so they're nice and steaming hot, right? And then come over here and just add a good amount of butter to both of them. You don't have to worry about calories with this dish, right? Because you spent all that time cooking it. Just come over here, add a couple pads of butter, right? Oh my gosh. And we're gonna sprinkle those potatoes just with a little bit of that truffle salt. All right. Amazing. So at this point, my steak, you'll notice the outside of it is not so hot anymore. Okay. So this is a perfect time to carve up this steak. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead, just remove that thyme and garlic from the top. Right. Place it off to the side. I'm going to carve this steak now, right? And if you ever taken these classes with us before, you'll know that maybe I always harp on it or whatever, but you want to let the knife do the work whenever you're carving. You never want to push through the meat because that's how you get a sharp carve, right? So come over here, right? And I just want to move my knife back and forth on top of that steak, right? And just let the weight of my knife come down through that steak over there all the way until I hit that cutting board. Okay, all the way until I hit that cutting board. All right, just come through here, carve that steak up. All right, wow. And you can see over here, this is why I want you to flip that steak over every 30 seconds, for this reason right here. You see that? As a perfectly cooked steak, you got that crust on top and on bottom, and edge to edge it has that beautiful temperature. Okay, so I'm just gonna come over here, get my steak laid out. Okay, get my plating on over here. Oh wow, look at that, looking absolutely stunning. All right, and any steak juices that might have accumulated, okay, during that cooking process, you want to make sure you're holding on to those, right? So personally, I always go ahead and I pop them into my succotash. All right, anything that might be on your cutting board over there. Don't ever leave flavor behind, right? So go ahead, add all that into your succotash, and then just come over here, right? And we're just gonna plate up this succotash, right? Which I just like to almost think of this succotash. I like to think of it almost as like a nice warm corn salad, right? So just coming right in here, laying a little bit of that corn down over there, right? A little bit over here. This is where DJ Dragon always likes to say you want to channel your inner Bob Ross, right? And just lay that beautiful corn succotash down. All right. Oh my gosh. All right. And then, last but not least, if you want, you can get a little garni going, right? With some of that fried thyme. Okay, get a little extra greenery going on to let everyone know that it was pan roasted. All right. And lastly, one final sprinkle of that Balinese truffle salt. All right. So, there you have it over there. We have our beautiful pan roasted New York strip steak. All right. With that summer corn succotash, a little baked potato action. All right, we're gonna show it to you from here, from all angles. We got a little up top angle of this as well. Look at that. Oh, looking absolutely stunning. But we want to see how your finished dishes look out and turn out, right? So once you got them plated, once you got them looking gorgeous, make sure you're taking pictures, tagging us at Truffle Shuffle _SF. We want to see how those steaks look over there. But with that, all that is left to do is dig in over here. So I hope you enjoyed this recording of this cooking class. Again, because it's recorded, you can fast forward, rewind, right? Do it like 1.5 speed, okay? And see how fast you can cook and keep up. But with that, hope you enjoy this dish out there. We would love to see you on more of our cooking classes. We're doing them. We're changing the menus all the time, right? We want to make you the best chef that you can possibly be. So come join us. But with that, again, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time to cook with me. And I look forward to cooking with you soon. Thank you.